Today we're taking a look at the Fantagraphics Ed Piskor Studio Edition. Welcome back to Comics Are Dope. I'm BJ Kicks, and this is my overview of the Ed Piskor Fantagraphics Studio Edition. This book is massive, by the way. We're going to do some size comparisons and everything. But as you can see, I'm sitting here recording this with basically a fisheye lens or a wide angle attachment, and it still is like just barely fitting in the frame. It doesn't fit on this table, this desk that I have it on. It's just massive. It's a huge book. This book I purchased from the family of Ed Piskor this summer at Heroes Con in Charlotte, and I've been wanting to show it to you guys ever since and could not find a way to do so because this book is just so massive. But we're going to do our best. So because I'm going to have to zoom in and crop some of this out because you're going to get that weird like halo effect around the outsides because of this wide angle attachment. But before I do, I want to just kind of give you a sense of the scale of this book. So I'm comparing it to what was previously the largest book in my collection. This is the Jim Lee X-Men Artist Edition. So if you're familiar with the IDW Artist Editions, they are, basically 11 by 17 books. The pages are the same size as they would be on the artboard, like as the artist is drawing it. So it's really cool to be able to see these books, see them drawn at the scale that they were originally drawn in, not scaled down to fit onto a page. And you get to see like all the little imperfections because they're scanned in full color. Even though they look like black and white pages, you see the whiteout, you see extra pencil marks that you wouldn't see in the final completed artwork. But that's what this is. That's the Jim Lee Studio or Artist Edition. Next up, I wanted to show it off compared to some other like really large books. So you might be familiar with like treasury editions, such as this one that just came out from DC. It's a reprint of the Superman versus Muhammad Ali. As you can see, that fits very safely inside this book. There's also this one, the Marvel Treasury Edition, X-Men Grand Design by Ed Piskor, where there are some of these pages actually in the Studio Edition. But the fact that it's like just that, this is considered a huge book. And you can see how much bigger the Studio Edition is. Just to give you even more sense of the scale, we'll give you a slightly smaller format. The Hip Hop Family Tree Omnibus. You can see how much smaller the Omnibus is, which is the same size as a Marvel Omnibus hardcover OHC, right? We can see that compared to something like a single issue comic book. Right, stuff is just getting smaller and smaller. You can see that compared to some of these smaller, earlier works that Ed Piskor did. So like this, for example, WYSIWYG, or even like the Beats. But the point is, you don't really get to appreciate just how huge and how detailed the art in these books are unless you get these huge editions like this. So anyway, now the size comparisons are out of the way, I'm going to probably zoom in just a tad to get rid of this vignetting. And now we can look at the Ed Piskor Studio Edition. So like I said, what this book is basically an artist edition of Hip Hop Family Tree. So if you've seen the IDW Artist Edition, is probably the most popular line by Scott Dunbier. Basically what they will do is they will take a collection of original art. They'll source it from wherever they've got to source it from. They will do high quality scans of that art. Let me make sure we're in focus here. They'll do high quality scans of that art, and then they will do their best to recreate it, reprint it on these big books. I'm moving this light around real quick because I want you to be able to see this in as much detail as possible without it being blown out. So I don't know. Well, I'm just working with the camera screen, so we'll see how it looks in post. But anyway, so that's what this is. High quality scans. You can even see where he's got like this, for example. This is an image of Ed where it looked like originally he was going to draw himself in like a fedora and decided to draw himself in the Pittsburgh hat. This would be an homage to that classic Run DMC cover where you see them in the fedoras and the glasses at the bottom of the frame. But anyway, you see him draw himself, you see the fedora, but then he's like, I'm decided to go with the Pittsburgh hat and just make this me. And so that's really cool. But you also see the guidelines for his lettering. I don't know how well that comes out on camera, but that's the point of these sort of artist editions, studio editions. Like you're getting just immaculate levels of detail. So this starts off, like I said, most of what's covered in this book is Hip Hop Family Tree, which has its roots as a webcomic called the Hip Hop Comic Book Connection. And basically what that book was, or that strip was just kind of highlighting how people that are fans of hip hop are generally also fans of comic books, especially the rappers who were making the stuff. So we got appearances from Spider-Man and Daredevil with random dudes on the street rapping. We got this dude, Yellow Kid. We've got this dude basically wearing a shirt featuring lyrics to Grandmaster Flash's The Message, calling Dr. Dre to surgery. There's Dr. Dre in his original Doctor getup from World Class Wrecking Crew. And then we get into it. Like we get the actual Hip Hop Family Tree, which, like I said, was a webcomic on Boing Boing. I love this page featuring Africa Bambaataa. Planet Rock is definitely like a super intergalactic sounding song, and putting it with this sort of EC Comics sci-fi theme just makes it even cooler. But you can see, again, you're seeing like the figure drawing the underdrawing there. You're seeing like sort of perspective grid lines. Like there's a lot of stuff that you see in blue line here that you don't see in the finished art. And I think that's what's really cool about this. This really gives you the chance to appreciate not just the art, but the work that went into the art. Like look at this fader knob. It was originally here in space and he decided to actually ink it here. So like stuff like that really makes you appreciate the art even more. What I love about this book is that the reason it is so huge is because you're getting the full size pages, right? So you see that, but you're also getting like director's cut commentary on every page. And so it is very much like reading an episode of Cartoonist Kayfabe focused on Ed Piskor's work. So that is really cool. Again, perspective grid lines, the note that he wanted to include all four elements of hip hop. So MCing, b-boying, graffiti, what am I missing? DJing. And some would consider style to be the fifth element. But, so you got Grandmaster Flash, you got the DJ, you got the MC Melly Mel, you got a breakdancer here. And then the graffiti ends up being on the trains and on the title, indicia. So that's really cool. And I'm not going to go through this like page by page. This book is over 180 pages long. You get even stuff like this, like comparing the thumbnails to the final finished product. So that's really cool. But you know, I guess this video is just by default going to be a sort of tribute to Ed Piskor, whose work I was only really familiar with Hip Hop Family Tree. Like I was a subscriber to Cartoonist Kayfabe, and I would kind of turn it on like when I'm editing videos and stuff like that, and just using it to learn more about comics history. Like I loved that they would do those Wizard magazine overviews. And so it's like going through a time capsule with the people that were actually there at the time. It's just something that's really cool to me. So I appreciated Cartoonist Kayfabe. I appreciated like the deep comic knowledge that Ed and Jim would share, even as they are critiquing the work of the day. And it was dope. But Ed Piskor's work Ed Piskor kind of was like a nerd, right? And he was a nerd about like a bunch of different things. Like he would dive super deep into like hacker culture and culture and music culture and like just all these different things. And so it was like the things that he was a fan of ultimately shone through in his work. And most of the things that Ed was a fan of, I'm not really super well versed in. Like I'm not a big fan or historian on computer hacker culture, as you might have seen in WYSIWYG right here, which is a very cool book. Like it's done really well. Like the cartoony style is there. And this is his first work, and it's super well researched and well thought out and really technically solid, right? But it's not a book that I would have picked up without like a super strong recommendation from a friend or something, right? Even some of Ed's earlier work with Harvey Piskor, right? Like Macedonia, What's It Take to Stop a War? So a book about a peace activist trying to stop a war. Like super interesting stuff if you like are even slightly familiar with the subject matter that's being referenced, but not something I would have picked up. The Beats, this graphic history of the 60s and beatnik culture and stuff like that, right? Like, again, this isn't all Ed. Ed does some of it, but stuff that like maybe I would have seen, maybe I wouldn't, probably would have passed it over in a library. But Hip Hop Family Tree is a deep dive that gets to the same or even greater levels of detail. Basically, this book ends up being, if you've ever taken like a hip hop studies class, which I had to for part of my degree, there are a lot of books that are recommended or required reading. Books like Can't Stop, Won't Stop by Jeff Chang. There is The Big Payback by Dan Charnas. And basically what those books do from an academic level is chart the history of hip hop from where it started out in like disco and like street parties and stuff like that, to where you first get like commercial success, like Def Jam being the huge example. And then how it like kind of goes from this really niche thing in the 70s into like a major multi-billion-dollar thing in the 90s into the 2000s, right? But what you get in most of those accounts is like, I don't even know where that stopped recording, but basically what you get in those academic texts are these accounts of all of these figures, specifically in inner city in New York City, who are building hip hop culture from the ground up. Here's Fab Five Freddy. And so my point is, here's Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five. But what you get here is a lot of those texts, as well as interviews that Ed did with subject matter experts and people that were there, Africa Bambaataa and the Soul Sonic Force. And so then he decides to put together like a history of hip hop in a graphic novel format. Again, because hip hop and comics are both like American creations. They're both super local to New York. Like there's a lot that hip hop and comics have in common. And he decided to take that and explore it to like the greatest level. And so what you get is this about a decade long history of hip hop as it starts in New York and expands to Philadelphia, throughout the Northeast, even to the West Coast with people like Dr. Dre, NWA and stuff being featured. And he gives you a history in a graphic format that is entertaining, but is very much educational as well, right? And all the while he's profiling all these different hip hop luminaries and figures and icons and making them look like superheroes. And these people all look super interesting. And so like it's really cool because it's like, if you know who any of these people are, when you see them on the screen, it's like, oh snap, they got Melly Mel in here. They got Russell Simmons in here. They got Rick Rubin in here. They've got this person and that person, right? And so that's really cool to see. But then also, if you're not familiar, like, it's just a great way to learn, an entertaining way to learn. Some people definitely get caricatures. Like Russell Simmons doesn't get the greatest depiction in this book. But it's definitely done with respect to the subject matter and all the people who are actually involved. We got the Beastie Boys, Rick Rubin over there DJing. We've got, the Run DMC. I love this splash page of Run DMC. But it's stuff like that, man. Like, that's just really, really cool. And so this was the project that made me an admirer of Ed Piskor's work. I even did an overview of the Hip Hop Family Tree Omnibus for Organic Price Books, the channel sponsor. So you can check that out. And when I did that, Ed Piskor actually retweeted it or reposted on his Instagram story. So that was really cool. But of course, Ed Piskor has been gone. As I filmed this, it's been like 5 months since Ed Piskor passed away. And so when I saw his family at Heroes Con, I was like, I want to support them in some kind of way. And this book had been out of print. I don't know. I think Fantagraphics might have reprinted some or found some in a warehouse or something. So it might be available still. But at the time, it wasn't available anywhere. And I wanted a copy. The cover price on this is $150. I ended up buying this from Ed Piskor's sisters for, I think, $200 at the show. And I have never been happier to spend $200. I mean, obviously that was a super tragic situation. You never want to see like anyone lose their life over anything, really. But certainly like just the unfortunate circumstances or whatever, like just wasn't fun to see. And so I figured like I want to support this family in their time of need and bereavement. Look at Michael Jackson and Prince. And that's what I mean, right? Like when I'm talking about like how when people show up, if you know who they are, you're like, oh my God, he went through this level of detail. He's got all of these people in here, right? Like really cool. Run DMC again. But all of the story, the story of hip hop plays out really well in here. So that's really, really cool. Look at LL Cool J. So anyway, what I love about this, like I said, is I don't know if you can even see it on the screen because this book is massive, but you don't just get the pages, which would be enough in my opinion, but you get this sort of director's commentary on every page. So he's telling you like what was important to him while he was drawing this, which sequences he liked, what he would change if he had to change anything, like what his favorite parts were, what some of the behind the scenes stuff was before the stuff even made it to a page. And I'm like, man, that stuff is just really, really cool to see. So here we are, 125 pages in. We're still looking at Hip Hop Family Tree. And then we get to like splash pages. That's really cool. Roxanne Shante. But yeah, so we get to like some of the so-called extras, right? Like slipcase art, different thumbnails, like stuff that didn't make it into the original printings of the books because these were done for like special editions after the fact. So the slipcase art for volumes 3 and 4. But again, I love how many people are just included in here. Just off the top, MF Doom, Notorious B.I.G., there's Crisscross, there's Public Enemy. There is, that's the Fat Boys. Oh, wait, so that's not Notorious B.I.G. because these three are the Fat Boys. Queen Latifah, Fab Five Freddy, looks like Heavy D, NWA. So anyway, it's just really cool. Just a who's who appears in this book at a bunch of different points. This is the table of contents page that ends up being the front of this book. And I'm going to skip around some. What I love, because it's Days of Future Past homage, but what I love about this is seeing a lot of these splash pages. Look at Sylvia Robinson looking super evil. That is hilarious. So yeah, I love these sort of like splash pages. Like they're throwbacks to like posters like you would have seen in hip hop history as well. So that's really cool. I love this. But anyway, there you go. There's the Fat Boys, the Disco 3 as they're known. So anyway, 150 pages of this, and we're still looking at Hip Hop Family Tree extras and stuff. It's not till about 160 where we start getting a little bit of like X-Men Grand Design. So it's like an X-Men fan art page that he did. And then we get to actually X-Men Grand Design. I love this image of Stan Lee holding the X-Men in his hands. So we get some pages from like the second and third volumes of X-Men Grand Design. So Second Genesis and Extinction. And those are all really cool to see. We end this book with like, there's some like an EC Comics tribute there. And the Public Enemy character sheets for the action figures that he ended up designed. So that was really, really cool. And that's pretty much the book. So yeah, I've been wanting to show this book off for quite some time, but I had no idea how to do it because this book is massive and I don't have like the biggest setup here. But I'm super grateful that Ed Piskor's family sold me a copy of this book. I was happy to support them. And, there's a video of Ed Piskor doing like an interview in his studio, and he's drawing a picture of a monster and he's geeking out over all these details about like, the Leroy lettering system and inking and all these different things. And yeah, it's really cool to see him do that. And, while he's doing this sort of interview and like you just get to see like the passion that he had for his craft, the craft of artistry and cartooning specifically. And I think this book, like if you are an aficionado, a connoisseur of any sort, and you appreciate this type of work, like you got to find a way to get this book in your collection because there's so many like little artifacts and things you would not see in any other format. So I highly recommend you check it out. And that's going to do it for this overview. Huge thanks to everybody supporting the channel. I'll see you in another video real soon. Till then, stay safe, stay awesome, and read something dope today. Peace.